The Roman Empire lasts for 1,000 years, and it is by far the most powerful, the most wealthy empire that we've studied yet in this course. But, as we've learned, nothing lasts forever. This lecture is about the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. After the death of Marcus Aurelius, the dynasty that takes over Rome and that controls the the emperor's chair for a while has a philosophy that you see described up there of just investing in the military, of just bribing the soldiers and the generals to make sure that they stayed the emperor, and ignoring everything else. So under them, civil society, civil institutions, just the government, the elites, the lawyers, everything else that sort of makes a society run all start to rot and decline, and the only thing that stays strong is the military. The problem with that then is once they're gone, you can see there from 235 to 284, without them to sort of keep everything in control, the people who become emperors are the people who are strong enough to just take the seat. So there's the succession of emperors that's very, very rapid as everybody just sort of kills this guy, and then this guy assassinates this guy, and this guy is the emperor for 2 years, and then he gets taken over by this guy. So these people take over, they make the military very strong, but then the result of that is, instead of being an orderly succession, there for a while it's just whoever can grab control takes it. Now, while Rome is declining, there are a few emperors who try and turn things around. It's not just a steady going downhill. There are some reforms that are attempted. First, we've got the Emperor Diocletian down there, who sort of stops the tide of this constant churn of emperors. He takes over, and his big idea is he's going to divide the empire into four different parts, and that's going to make it easier to manage. His idea is that the empire is getting too big for just one person to control. He's going to chop it up into four different parts, and he has this whole scheme and then that is going to make it easier to rule. It's just going to make it's going to at least salvage some of the civilization that the empire's been able to create. And then Constantine, after him, builds a new capital city, Constantinople. These guys like to name cities after themselves. And he shifts the capital away from Rome over into the east. Constantinople, it's modern day Istanbul, it's over in Turkey. So he's going to shift that center of power away from Italy, which again is sort of on the decline, and he's going to try and revive the empire by moving the center of government over to the east, which is richer at this point. Now, layered on top of this political instability and these radical structural reforms to Rome, you also have waves and waves of invasions from whom the Romans called barbarians, which really just means people who aren't Roman. You've got from Asia, the Huns, these people who were excellent warriors on horses, led by Attila the Hun, who's this very dynamic, great conqueror, this big leader. He leads his invaders out from Asia, and they're on the move into Europe. They were conquering Europe when Attila the Hun died, so who knows how far they would have gotten had he lived. Then the sort of chaos that they create as they're invading bumps these Germanic peoples, these people from like modern day Germany, down into Rome. They have to get away from the Huns, so they start invading and attacking Rome also. So Rome is sort of under constant threat from these people whom they've spent hundreds upon hundreds of years invading and sort of taking stuff from. Now these guys are starting to rise up, and they're really battering Rome while Rome's going through a lot themselves. And at the end of the day, Rome proves unequal to the task of stopping them. And one group, the Visigoths, you saw on the other side there, the Visigoths, the Vandals, there's a bunch of them. The Visigoths actually do sack Rome in the year 410. Sack in this context means to, they go in, they invade the city, they rob the people, they take anything of value, they hurt a bunch of people, and then they leave. So it's not as if they conquer it, they just go in and they take a bunch of stuff. But that was very significant. That was this very, amazing moment in history because Rome had been so powerful, and now the Visigoths are coming in and beating them up. And if that all wasn't enough, Rome also is then hit by a number of plagues. Now, a plague is an epidemic disease, right? It's a disease that hits a huge portion of society, all at the same time, very rapidly. So not only does it cause a lot of suffering and misery and death, it also really wrecks your society because it's just disrupting life on a grand scale. So many Romans are dying of the plague, which not only causes, of course, terrible suffering, but it also starts to cause a labor shortage. There aren't enough workers. So all of these problems, the invasions, the plagues, end up just causing an economic collapse, by which I mean trade, industry, whole sectors of the economy. Businesses obviously, by the hundreds, by the thousands are just, fail, just disappear. So all of that leads to terrible economic things, such as inflation. Inflation, if you don't know, means a rapid increase in prices. When economies start to just spiral out of control, prices will increase by gigantic amounts. Imagine if you went to the store and all of a sudden, a gallon of milk cost $70, and then you go back the next day to see if it'll go down, and the next day it costs $150, and then up from there and up from there. That happens, and it happens in societies that are undergoing just catastrophic economic terribleness, and that happened in Rome. One of the other consequences of this is they really couldn't afford to maintain an army anymore the way that they used to. Armies are what Rome was all about. They were all about strength and power and their amazing armies. They couldn't really handle that anymore, so what they instead did is they took what money they did have and they hired foreign soldiers. They hired Germanic soldiers. They hired people from outside of Rome, from outside of their traditions, to start to protect their own empire. I've tried to demonstrate that Rome's decline took a long period of time. Rome didn't fall the first time it was sacked. The Visigoths came in, took a bunch of stuff, but then they left, and there were Roman emperors after that. In fact, it was sacked a couple more times. A couple more invading armies came and threatened the Roman emperor, and then the Roman emperor, paid him some money, and they went away. And then another, army of barbarians came, and the Roman emperor paid him some money, and they went away. Well, the last time that happened was with this guy. He's the last Roman emperor. His name is Romulus Augustulus, and Odoacer is leading an army, doing that same old thing, right? He marches in, and Odoacer's like, okay, I'll pay you some money to go away. And Odoacer basically says, you know what? No, I'm not going to take that. I think I would want to just be the king of Italy. So he stays. He deposes, which means he gets rid of, throws the Romulus Augustulus off the throne and takes the throne for himself and proclaims himself king of Italy. He's, a king of Italy. And that's it. He does not replace Romulus Augustulus. There is no more Roman emperor after that. After him, Rome is done. Odoacer, by the way, is one of the soldiers that Rome hired to, protect it. So you see how that worked out. As always, of course, I'm only giving you the broadest of overviews here. There are many other things that could have contributed to the fall of Rome over time. Three theories of things that contributed to the fall of Rome that I do want to touch on before we end today are these three over here. Lead poisoning is one a theory of what might have contributed to the fall of Rome. The Romans used lead pipes to pump their water, to transport their water, and that's really bad. It's really bad to use lead pipes to transport your water because it can get in the water. It can cause lead poisoning. Lead poisoning can cause mental problems, can cause insanity. So one theory is that the Romans are using too much lead, and then, there are charts and things about how much lead was in their water and how that might have affected the emperor's decision making. But one of the theories is that they drank too much lead in their water, and so that's why they make bad decisions, because they all go crazy. Another theory is that when the empire became largely Christian, they became too nice to exist in the same ruthless way that they had existed before. That Rome's success was predicated on this theory of violence and might makes right, and that when the majority of the empire and the decision makers flipped over to this new religion that preached different morals, that it just didn't fit with the way that their structures had worked before, and regardless of what you think of the philosophy and the possible superiority of the philosophy, that's why the empire fell apart, because you needed to be ruthless to have that work, and then they weren't ruthless anymore. They were too nice. They weren't evil enough. And then another theory, these are all just theories, is that the Romans just became too over-reliant on slavery. Rome always had a lot of slaves, but one of the theories, and again, there are charts that they put together about how many slaves there were over time. One of the theories is that there became too many slaves. They became so reliant on slaves to do everything for them that they just got too lazy to do things themselves, and that was one of the ways that they just let their amazing empire slip through their fingers. So that is the fall of Rome. Goodbye.